All right, hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to episode number 4 of Orange Pillars. If you haven't watched an episode before, Pavao and I basically just hang out for a few hours once a month, talk about Bitcoin, share our orange pilling stories. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by sending some sats to the QR code in the YouTube description. All of those sats go towards helping to Orange Pill Rab, and we'll give people updates if that gets traction and sort of where we're spending the funds. And you can also listen on Fountain, which is a value for value podcasting platform. And it lets you stream sats as you listen. Also lets you boost sats and even earn sats while listening, which is kind of cool. So, Pavao, thanks for being here, and always a treat having this chat once a month. It comes quick. Feels like we just had this like a week ago.
Exactly. This monthly rhythm is really, it's like perfect. Not
Yes.
too often, not too, rare. So it's
Yeah,
great.
and it's not. Yeah, I think monthly is like it's not an overcommitment where it becomes like a burden,
Yeah,
but it gives you enough time to kind of bottle up thoughts and then sort of
exactly.
crystallize them and discuss them. And I appreciate these very much, regardless of whether people listen to this or not. I appreciate the shit out of them. So thank you.
Nice.
Um, so one thing I've been thinking about a lot. I go for a lot of walks, and
Mm-hmm.
one thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is this idea of, we always throw around the idea of number go up technology.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the most part, um, that usually references the spot price.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've really started to kind of buckle down on is the idea that number go up. The important number is the network participants,
Mm-hmm.
more so than the fiat denominated price.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the amount of people that are using Bitcoin as a tool to escape fiat slavery, which
Mm-hmm.
to the uninformed probably sounds sensationalistic, but I think it's true on many levels when you start to dive deep into it. Um, the number of participants is really what makes the network valuable. And if the number of participants is going up, the price will follow. Um, and the fiat price is always going to be manipulated because fiat is constantly being manipulated and will continue to do so at an accelerated rate as this kind of, this merry-go-round comes to an end. But what I really like about the number go up, talking about number of participants, is that it's very action oriented, right? In
Mm-hmm.
that each of us can help number of participants go up by helping people understand Bitcoin. And that is sort of the essence of orange pilling. So yeah, what are your thoughts on number go up as it's commonly applied? And, do you agree that the number of participants in the network is actually what makes it valuable, right? More so than anything else. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think that what Bitcoiners usually really mean when they say number go up is that the purchasing power of Bitcoin as money goes up, which is true because more and more people uh, come onto the network and start holding their money in Bitcoin, which raises the demand for holding Bitcoin, which increases the monetary premium, which increases the purchasing power. And since we cannot make more of the Bitcoins, other than what we can mine according to the schedule, there is always going to be increasing, more and more increase in the purchasing power. So yeah, definitely. I think that Bitcoin network is growing both in the number of people who are participating. So we can clearly see that from the number of new addresses that are created, but also it's growing because there is more and more economic monetary demand on top of it. So, like, let's say you can compare, like, one Michael Saylor is much more impactful because he has a lot more monetary demand. He holds a lot more purchasing power on the network than 10,000 very small stackers. But again, they are both very important and they do not take from each other. So the fact that Michael Saylor or any other like big Bitcoin holder holds a lot of monetary demand on Bitcoin is not affecting my stack at all. In fact, it's just improving its purchasing power. So In that case, it's very, fair system, like the only fair system currently, where the fact that someone holds a lot more does not affect anyone who holds less, and everyone's incentive is aligned. And the only reason why that is so is because there is nobody that can mess with the supply of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin supply is fixed. It's non-responsive to the increases in demand, and that's what makes the number go up technology work. And I think that when we look at it that from that angle, I think that really the number go up is the most important technology in Bitcoin, because all other technologies are flowing from it. So the fact that Bitcoin is deflationary money that appreciates in purchasing power over time is what enables all these marvelous new technologies that are being developed, all these different apps, different use cases, different custody models, different, who knows what we are going to do next. The mining industry that's merging with the energy industry, all that are basically all those effects are predicated on Bitcoin number go up, so to speak. Bitcoin's purchasing power continue to increase, and this is why I think Bitcoin is really a great thing to behold. So
I think humans fundamentally understand scarcity also. I was having a conversation with the guy that runs a jiu-jitsu gym that I used to go to, and was kind of talking about, and like when I talk about Bitcoin to people, I really like try and tune into their body language and facial language to see like what part is actually like biting, right? Like what's grabbing them. And I'm going through all these kind of like metaphors I usually use, and he's not really paying attention. And then I said, there's only ever going to be 21 million of them. And his eyes light up. He's like, oh, it must be worth something. There's only 21. Like he fundamentally understood scarcity. When I said, I think now there's over 19 million that are out there in circuit. So we got 2 million to go for the next 110 years to deal with all the new demand that's going to be generated as people learn about this. And I think just this notion that people fundamentally understand that things that are scarce, provably scarce, have an innate value. And I really don't think most people really understand the difference between relative scarcity and absolute scarcity, because we've never had absolute scarcity before, right? And I really like to, I've started to really buckle down on asking people, why is gold valuable? And just hearing what they say, because most people, it gives me an idea of like, where's their current understanding? What level can I speak to with them that they can kind of, that they can keep up with, that they can kind of understand. And people fundamentally understand that there's not a lot of gold in the world. It's hard to get more gold. It's expensive to mine it. And so gold is expensive because it's scarce. And this idea that relative to copper, gold is very rare. Gold is very scarce. But, that relative scarcity is still, you still have a 2% inflation rate every year, which means that in like something like 30 years, you've lost, I think 50% of your purchasing power, something along those lines, which it exponentially, it goes pretty quick. Whereas with Bitcoin, this idea of absolute scarcity, where it doesn't actually matter if 10 times as many people want to buy Bitcoin, we can't just make more of it because we want to, right? And this idea that we've never had that before, it's not something on people's radar. I don't think people fundamentally understand the implications of that if and when demand, even if demand continues to increase at the rate it has. The idea that there are not, doesn't matter if you have $1 billion or $1 trillion, you cannot will more Bitcoin into existence even if you tried. And this is a very special thing. And one thing I've been working to do, I had this dinner the other day. I have a friend, he's moving to Italy for his 30th birthday. I did kind of a little experiment to give him like some sort of keepsake, and I put 30,000 sats into a wallet. And I took the 12-word recovery, put it into BIP39 format, so it's just like 12 strings of 4 numbers, and I gave him this engraved on a piece of metal. And I said, here's a piece of metal. There is Bitcoin on this. If and when you want to access this, let me know and I'll teach you how. he was very interested. He's like, not only is this a cool thing for my 30th birthday, but like, it's trippy that there's actually Bitcoin on here. It's just a mess of numbers. This is weird. So it was
Nice.
kind of like a more of a gimmicky thing than anything. But he's a chef. He said, you know what? Why don't you come over for dinner? I'll cook you a nice meal, and the trade will be we can talk about Bitcoin. We
Yeah.
didn't really end up talking about Bitcoin that much because we just had more things to talk about. But one thing his girlfriend asked me, she's like, well, how does my Bitcoin multiply? Like, you talk about how Bitcoin gets more valuable. Like, how is it multiplying? And, it kind of stumped me because I'm like, all right, how can I explain this? And what I said was, it's not so much that Bitcoin is necessarily multiplying. When you have a certain amount of Satoshis, that's what you have, unless you buy more. It's that everything else is getting diluted. So relative to everything else, Bitcoin gets higher in value.
Yep.
And she kind of understood that, right? She's like, it's not that like I'm gaining interest on my Bitcoin. It's that relative to everything else, which is abundant and being diluted, the fact that this is scarce means that relative to everything else, it's going to go up in value. And she kind of understood that. So yeah, I just think, even as I was engraving that plate, it's like the idea that I could put $1 billion in 12 strings of 4 numbers and bring them with me wherever I want is the trippiest thing ever. It's so crazy, and so special also, and gives, I think when I was doing that, I'm like, wow, there is so many options in terms of how to custody your Bitcoin, so many strategies which can be customized and tailored to your risk tolerance, how much wealth you have in there, the level of understanding you have of how to keep your Bitcoin safe. And but I think at the end of the day, what I learned from that meal I had was like, people really have to understand the fundamentals of why Bitcoin is valuable for them to really even care about investing the time, which is mandatory, to understand it and learn how to custody it. And, I think what I've just been trying to do these days is make it less intimidating for people. Number one is help them identify problems that I know they have and that they're talking about and complaining about, but they don't know Bitcoin solves, and make that connection. And then make it less intimidating so that they can understand it at a high level and know that like, this is a long-term thing. Like, you're not just going to get Bitcoin and feel cool putting all your money in it. You really have to, it's like level up, stack your knowledge, stack your sats, stack your knowledge. And if those two things become a big disparity, that's where the cause for anxiety is. That's where the concern and the worry is. And so it's really about equalizing like the size of your stack, of your sat stack, with the size of your knowledge stack, and making sure that those incrementally go together. And once people understand it's a long-term investment, kind of like health. Like I really think my background in health has helped me understand Bitcoin, helped me understand how to orange pill more effectively, because health is a long game. Bitcoin is a long game. And if you rush it, you just fuck it up. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you touched on a lot of topics that I have been studying very deeply in the last 2 years, especially since I'm working with Safedin. So you mentioned gold and copper and all the other things. Why, for example, why was gold money? Why was it most valuable thing? And when you don't think about it so deeply, you may think that it's valuable because it's nice and shiny and yellow and scarce, in the nature. But it's not really because of that. Because if you, for example, compare platinum, for example, it's also nice and shiny. It's not yellow, it's more white, and it's also rare. But
it's even more scarce.
Yeah, it's even more scarce. But it doesn't have monetary property as gold has, only because its stock to flow ratio is much lower than gold's. And what do I mean by that is, gold has been accumulating, humanity has been accumulating gold like for 5,000-6,000 years already. So because we have so large stockpiles of gold, there are gold bars that contain gold that has been used in ancient Egypt and things like that. So there's huge stock of gold, and the newly mined supply of gold is very small relative to the amount of stock. While the platinum, for example, since it's kind of a new metal, or we have only recently, maybe for I don't know 100 years or so, since the Industrial Revolution, we have been able to mine platinum and use it. The stock of platinum is actually much slower. So if we try to monetize platinum, we will increase the monetary demand for holding platinum, but then the producers of platinum will be able to increase the supply at a much higher rate because the stock of platinum is much smaller than its yearly supply. So, and with gold, since we have like 50 or 60 years worth of stock, if we double the supply, if we mine double the amount of gold than we did last year, we are not gonna the stock to flow ratio is still gonna be very high, around 50 or 60. We have to check it exactly. While with platinum, the stock to flow is maybe 2 or 3, the amount of stock that's stockpiled of platinum versus the yearly supply. If we were to double yearly supply, we could actually, increase the stock drastically, which means that the price of platinum will go down. And when we compare Bitcoin, with gold and platinum and any other thing that we may use as money, because remember, we can use anything as money because money is just a medium of exchange, right? Humans are exchanging with one another. And the problems with direct exchange is that there is what we call double coincidence of wants. So we use medium of exchange in order to solve for that problem. And we can use anything as medium of exchange. In fact, people are using many different things as medium of exchange. One of them is real estate, for example. Many people are buying houses, not because they want to consume them, but because they want to live in them or use them for anything. They're buying houses because they want to exchange them for something else later, right?
Right. So
they are using houses as money. Thus, the housing prices have this monetary premium attached to it. So anyway, the Bitcoin's unique property as money is that the stock to flow of Bitcoin is only going up. So currently it's around the same as gold, maybe a little bit less. But, in the next halving in 2024, I think stock to flow is going to shoot up to maybe 80 or so. We can check that. It's pretty easy to check because you just take the amount of Bitcoin that has been mined already and divide it by the yearly new production of Bitcoin. So you will get the number stock to flow ratio. And the fact is that Bitcoin is, when the last Bitcoin is going to be mined, the stock to flow is going to be infinite. And we haven't ever had.
I don't think we know what that does.
Yeah, we don't know what that does. We do know. So with this question about how is it gonna look like how do you get more Bitcoin if Bitcoin is? How does it work? If the amount of coins is fixed, right? And we can argue that it's actually dropping because there is the difference between the nominal amount of Bitcoin and the real amount of Bitcoin, because the real amount of Bitcoin is actually less than the nominal amount, because people lose their coins, and they maybe some people will simply burn the coins on purpose in order to kind of donate the purchasing power to the rest of the network. But
I think it's the ultimate form of philanthropy. Like you want to be able to, it's like it's free market philanthropy, where if you burn a coin or a series of coins, you're giving it to the entire world of Bitcoin holders to use as they see fit. And you're doing it in terms of purchasing power. So I think it is like, Elon Musk, you want to do philanthropy, buy $1 billion of Bitcoin, burn it all. And then you just helped the whole world spend that $1 billion worth of purchasing power more wisely. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's happening. And so how do we kind of make more Bitcoin, or how do we what's the way to think about Bitcoin's price? Is that actually we will always produce more of other goods and services. So for example, This year, we maybe produced 100 apples, and there is a price, according to the demand for apples. We have supply of 100 apples, we have certain demand, and there is certain price in terms of Bitcoin. But if next year we produce 1,000 apples, then that means if we have the same demand, that the price of apples will drop down 10 times in terms of Bitcoin. So the more things we produce, the higher quality things we produce, the more services we come up with, all of these things are getting more and more abundant, and Bitcoin is staying constant, it's staying the same. So that means that simply the prices of everything denominated in Bitcoin are going to continue to drop and drop and drop. And the purchasing power of Bitcoin is going to continue to increase. In fact, you may witness a situation, and this is something very important, especially for many Bitcoiners to really understand, is that you will most likely, like this is something that I discussed with my friend the other day, there is most likely the amount of sats, the amount of Bitcoin that you're holding right now is the most, the largest nominal amount of Bitcoin that you will hold in your life. Like in 10, 15, 20 years, chances are the nominal amount of Bitcoin is going to drop down drastically, while your purchasing power will increase drastically. So you may end up, let's say, one Bitcoin today is around 20 something thousand US dollar of purchasing power. So we can visualize what we can buy with around 20,000 US dollars worth of purchasing power. That's one Bitcoin today. But, in 10 years, only 1 million sats, right? That's 0.01 Bitcoin, may end up buying much more than one whole Bitcoin buys today. So you may end up in 10 years buying around 200,000 US dollars of purchasing power. So you may end up buying like a house versus a car with less nominal Bitcoin than you actually have today. So even if your nominal amount of Bitcoin that you hold drops over time, your purchasing power may grow faster than the nominal amount of Bitcoin that you hold is going down. And really, how do like you really feel this, and you really kind of I don't know how to say embody this idea when you start living on a full Bitcoin standard, because then you're at the same time you have your inflows that are denominated in Bitcoin, and you have your outflows that are denominated in Bitcoin. So you will still see that the amount of Bitcoin that you are kind of handling over time is actually dropping, while your purchasing power is increasing. And so it's really fascinating thing. It's hard to explain when you when people still have fiat or some amount of fiat that's kind of making
twisting
them
and manipulating the way they think.
Yeah. It's basically just it's a frame of mind that you are looking at something. It's hard to get out of it. It's like these visual kind of things that there's like an image or a pattern or something that you don't really see an image on it, but there is a way to look at it so that you see this 3D image. I don't know if you heard. It's like a visual optical illusion of sorts. So once you see it, right, you cannot really unsee it, right?
Yes.
And Bitcoin is like that. So once you really step into the full Bitcoin standard and really use it as your money, you cannot really unsee the fact that, for example, purchasing power of Bitcoin is going to continue going up, while your nominal amount of Bitcoin is going to continue to go down. Most likely, it's very, very likely that that's going to happen for most of people, because most people will not be able to make their income is not going to be growing at the percentage rate that Bitcoin purchasing power is growing. It's like basically you would have to make 10 times more every 4 years
That's pretty
in
hard.
order to keep, you know, stacking the same amount of coins.
Right.
And most people can't do that. Most people, you know, work simple normal jobs that provide value to others, and they earn like average amount of inflow. But the fact that they are using Bitcoin is what's, you know, increasing their purchasing power. So it's amazing. But I still think that there's a lot of kind of ideas to absorb in the Bitcoin community. And one of these ideas is that it's really not about the amount of sats that you own, right? It's about your overall purchasing power. That has to go up, and that will go up as long as your inflow and your outflow has a different. Your inflow needs to be larger than your outflow, and the purchasing this difference, this delta is gonna be, you know, stay in Bitcoin, and that's gonna increase over time. So, yeah, one of the things that I kind of one of my pet peeves that I like to point to.
I think when people understand that the current fiat system, the way that it must work and must continue to go along, is that it needs to create more and more units.
Yeah, units.
And it must do that into perpetuity until it collapses. Like it is it's a harsh realization when you realize this is a self-terminating system. The only way this ends is by destroying itself. And like if you understand history, or if you're literate in history, you see that this is a recurring pattern because of the mechanics of how this works. It's not just like a luck coincidence thing. It's like this is how it must go. So the idea that Bitcoin is there's less and less Bitcoin being created as time passes, as there is also more and more units of fiat being created. So there's more fiat units chasing a scarce group of sats. And that asymmetry of how few Bitcoin are created and how many fiat units are created is huge, right? Fiat is increasing at an exponential rate and must continue to do so until it collapses. Whereas Bitcoin is decreasing in its supply at an exponential rate until it basically has no Bitcoin created in 2140. And that's just a fee system. So this idea that there is more and more dollars, fiat units, fighting for less and less Bitcoin, like if you understand even like a basic level of supply and demand, it's like, well, inevitably over a long enough time period, that's what happens, right? The purchasing power of 1 unit of Bitcoin goes up as the purchasing power of 1 unit of fiat goes down. And the other day I had dinner with 2 friends, and it was the first time I really had to go, like, we were kind of pinging off of a bunch of like high level concepts. I'm like, let's talk about the properties of money, because I haven't talked about the properties of money in a while. It's good opportunity to kind of rehash it. And what I realized is like, I really think what's important when I first have conversations with people about money, I don't even mention the word Bitcoin, because automatically they latch onto this preconceived notion of what they think Bitcoin is, which almost always is a false assumption. It's a misunderstanding. So I just start with money. It's like, well, what are if something's good money and something's bad money, it's not just because someone said so. It's not an opinion. Like there are foundational first principles, like properties of money, that if you understand them, you then can make a judgment of what is good money and not good money, based on like some reasoning. So why don't we go tic-tac-toe and go through the properties of money? Because as I've kind of like I had to relook at the properties of money, and it was hard to kind of retrieve them because I hadn't said them in a short period of time. And it's very interesting because I've kind of added a few of my own that I think for me are important they're not foundational properties of money, but for me, they're important considerations, like confiscability and taxability. Like those things are very important to me as a property of, is this money good or not? Well, how easily is it confiscated? How easily is it taxed? How easily can someone steal it from me? So let's go through the properties of money. I'll kick us off. First one is divisibility, right? The reason a cow is not good money is you can't really divide cow into 1,000 units and give it to individual people, right? It's very hard. So I think this whole notion that divisibility, being able to divide and aggregate whatever token you're using as a form of money, the more easily divisible and aggregatable that money is, the better, right? Like fiat is pretty good at that. Gold, less so, right? If you have a gold bar, really hard to chip off like 1/1000th of that and feel confident that you're giving it to someone and it is the unit that it is. Whereas Bitcoin is literally divisible into 100 million units called Satoshis. Mm-hmm. So divisibility, property number one. You can pick a property and riff on it.
Yeah, divisibility property is in also in Austrian economics is called salability across scales, right? So how easy it is to or how another thing about divisibility is how much purchasing power does it hold per unit of weight, as well. So that's like another thing with divisibility. I like framework from Austrian economists that Seyfedin expounds in in Bitcoin Standard and also Principles of Economics, and he talks about salability, which there is salability across time, salability across space, and salability across scales. So we talked about salability across scales. You're right. Cow is worse money than, for example, salt, because salt is has much higher salability across scales. Like you can use cow as money, but it's hard to buy a cup of coffee with cow. With the whole
also
cow,
hard to buy the Dallas Cowboys with cows.
Exactly. So, but you can still use cows as a medium of exchange. Like you can use it. That's a very important point, that you can use anything as money, right? Literally, whatever you want to hold, not because you want to consume it, because you want to use it, but because you want to exchange it for something that you actually want to consume later. Then you are using that thing as money. So literally,
so long as someone's willing to accept it as money.
Yeah, or it's just that that's a very, very important thing to kind of drill down, because nobody is like, there are like, for example, why do, like in prisons, why do prison inmates use cigarettes as money, right? They will acquire cigarettes and they will not smoke them, but they will use them as money, right? In prisons. Why is that? Well, because in prisons, the kind of the environment is such that the cigarettes end up being a good that has highest, salability properties for money, and people use that to exchange for whatever else they end up wanting. And basically, the cigarettes are much more expensive, because if you acquire cigarettes in prison to smoke them, I mean, you will have to pay much more in terms of your time, basically. Now your time is really the ultimate resource. So when we go back to what's money, like what are the properties of money, I think the two most important properties of money are much more so than salability across scales, like divisibility, because divisibility can be solved by using additional, like people have solved gold's low salability across scales by using silver as like you would use silver to buy things that are smaller in value, rather than using gold bars. So you would usually buy higher, like a cow or a house or whatever with gold, and you would use your silver as your daily kind of pocket money, so to speak. But the most important two properties of money is salability across time and salability across space, because salability across time is really how much is your thing that you are using as money holding on to its value in unit of time. So you can have, like, you can, if you decide to use bananas as money, you can do that. Like you can literally take 100 kilograms of bananas and acquire them, not because you want to eat 100 kilograms of bananas, but because you want to exchange them for whatever else you want later. But the duration of time that it will take you to, since you acquire 100 kilograms of bananas until you exchange them for whatever you want later, is gonna be, I don't know, maybe a month or so until bananas rot. So basically, the salability of through time is very low with bananas. While, for example, if you acquire, you know, I don't know, 100 kilograms of copper, you know, and exchange them a month later for something else, then copper has better salability across time than bananas do. So
That almost
this is
tethers
one
to
dimension.
durability as like one of the principles.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
like
durability. Yeah,
yeah,
durability. But
copper is more
also,
durable. But it's interesting because these
yeah,
principles you're talking about, scalability across scale, scalability across time and
scale,
space,
time, and
it's
space. Yeah,
almost like they transcend the first print, the like basic properties and actually
yeah,
include multiple ones. Because I would agree, I would argue that scalability across time factors in durability. Is this thing going to rot or degrade
yeah.
over time? But I think it also factors in scarcity, because
Exactly, exactly,
if someone could
exactly.
just
That's the
make
other
banana,
thing.
if someone can grow bananas and
Exactly.
increase the supply,
So
yeah,
exactly. So we end up like there are things that are durable. For example, copper is more durable than bananas, but still it has low salability across time, because if we all start acquiring copper, you know, in order to exchange it for something else later, not because we want to consume it, we will increase demand for copper, we will increase the price of copper, and then the producers of copper will be able to produce more of it. So that's the other property, that's sub property, durability, and the monetary hardness. So how hard is it to increase the supply of the good that you are using as money because of the increase of demand, right?
mm.
And that's the measure of hardness of money. So over time, what we ended up having is gold had the most hardness. It was most saleable over time, because it's because of the gold's property that gold cannot really be destroyed or consumed. You know, the other metals, they can kind of rust and decay and degrade and so on. Gold is very stable. It doesn't rust. It's just even if there is an explosion, you know, gold bars can explode, and you can still melt the gold back to gold bars.
Yep.
So the fact that you cannot really destroy, consume gold, makes it such that it accumulates over time. So the new production of gold is very small relative to the stock. It's still more, you know, in absolute terms. Today we can produce much more gold than we could 300 years ago, right? Because we have better technology, we have hydrocarbons, we have all these machines, huge machines that can, you know, take a lot of ground out and crush a lot of ground and so on, and get more gold out. And we may even have a larger amount of gold if we find out how to extract gold from the sea, or if we suddenly become able to extract gold from asteroids or whatever. But the fact is that the stock of gold is always growing, because we are not really consuming it. So that's what provides it with highest salability across time. So salability across time. Now the problem with gold, it is that it has very good, very high salability across time, but its salability across space is not so good. So there is a salability across space, which is a measure of how much does it cost you to move this money, that whatever money that you're using, in the unit of distance. So let's say every 100 kilometers, there is a certain amount of the value of money that you are moving that's lost in transit, so to speak. So there is like in fiat standard, for example, Seyfedin argues that, not argues, I mean, he just checked the prices. So there is like I think 400 ounces of gold, the standard good delivery gold bar, which is 12.5 kilograms, you know, the big gold bar. I think when he wrote the book last year, when he finished, it was $750,000, one big brick of gold, 12.5 kilograms. It costs around $3,000 to ship that gold from, I think he calculated from London to New York, okay, across the Atlantic, around $3,000.
That's less than I would have even expected, actually.
Yeah, it's actually not so much. I also didn't expect it, but it's still like, how much does it cost to move $750,000 in Bitcoin across, from London to New York? It costs maybe $1 or something. It depends on the mempool, how many transactions are in mempool, but it's still $1 versus $3,000. Even if transaction fees went up 100 times, okay, in Bitcoin, we are still paying $100 to move $750,000. So we are still like, we would have to increase the transaction fee 3,000 times to match the cost of moving gold through space. And that's not like,
that's ignoring the time element as well.
It's ignoring time, right? So it takes a couple of days, maybe a day or two, to move the gold bar. You can move Bitcoin in 10, 20 minutes, right? Depending on how much you want to wait for the confirmations, for the finality. But so you can still move it much faster. But the more important thing is that if you want to move $10 million of gold, this amount of money, that $3,000 per one good delivery bar is actually going to go up, because like the amount of money that you need to spend to move higher amounts of gold scales with the amount of gold. So it's not the same if I want to send you a small 5-gram gold coin across the Atlantic and 1 ton of gold across the Atlantic. 1 ton of gold is gonna cost much more in terms of a percentage of the total value of gold. And then you also have the cost. So when you move money from one place to another, money is really a solution for trading with people who you don't know, who you don't trust, because otherwise you could just extend the credit to one another and you don't need to move. Like, you want money is really what can settle your trade without you having to trust the counterparty. Now, with gold, if you move such a large amount of gold from London to New York, how much is it going to cost you to verify that the gold that you received is actually gold that you wanted to receive? So the only way to do that for large bars of gold is to actually melt the gold down and recast it back, so that you can, because there are spectrometers, there are tools that are very, very expensive, again, compared to the Bitcoin full node, which performs this verification literally every single 10 minutes on, by the way, on all the supply of Bitcoin, rather than just your gold bar, right?
Yeah. When you do your gold bar, you're not doing all the gold in the world.
Exactly. So really, the Bitcoin's full node that can literally be ran on pretty much any laptop actually checks the whole supply and verifies the whole supply of Bitcoin, and also your Bitcoin that you are receiving. It checks that your Bitcoin that you are receiving is exactly, let's say you're receiving 1 Bitcoin, it's 1 Bitcoin over 21 million of total Bitcoin. While when you receive a gold bar, like, you don't really know how much gold is out there. You can verify that the gold bar is yours, even though it's very expensive. You have to melt it down, you have to recast it back into gold bar, and then you still don't really know how much more gold is out there. So
I don't think we'll ever know. There's so much paper gold out there, fake gold, that there's actually no way of checking.
And this is why, so gold's scalability across space, low scalability across space, is exactly why fiat standard basically came up. Fiat standard is just a technological kind of solution for gold's low scalability across space. Because if you take this bar of gold, right?
It's like a layer 2 on gold.
Exactly. So your bar of gold that you have at your house, right? $750,000 of gold has much higher, it has more, is more valuable if you put it in your bank, in your vault, because then you can actually send it across Atlantic faster and cheaper. Because your bank in New York and the bank in London, they are just gonna, change ownership in their internal database. They will just say,
a ledger
look,
change.
just a ledger change. This is why gold basically got wings when you put it in your bank. And this is not the same.
There's a cost to that, though. There's a cost to getting wings.
There is cost. So the banks could actually get away with inflating the supply of gold. They could fractionally reserve gold and actually issue fiduciary media certificates that basically there were more certificates circulating than the gold in the vaults. And basically this is why governments have been able to capture the whole railways of gold settlement. This is why, for example, today you cannot really create a free banking in gold, right? The people have been trying to do that, but government will not allow that to do, because they can control the settlement of gold bullion in the market. And in Bitcoin, this is what actually will prevent. So I sometimes I smile when I hear gold bugs. Sometimes they like to say, yeah, they have been suppressing the price of gold for how much time. They can do that because they have a lot of money. You guys, you Bitcoiners, you just wait, and you will see how they will suppress your price of Bitcoin. But the fact that you can take possession of your Bitcoin and send it across space with just your laptop, and connection to internet, you don't need, this huge apparatus to move large amounts of Bitcoin across space. That's what makes, the fact. This is why we haven't seen fiduciary media issued on top of Bitcoin. We do not really. I mean, if I send you Bitcoin, you don't really care. I'm not gonna say, look, Nick, I'm gonna send you Binance certificate for Bitcoin. I mean, like, what's that? Right. Exchanges have not been issuing, certificates on top of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is so easy to take, to move across space. And
at the end of the day, I don't really care what you give me, what certificate, what third party says you gave me. All I care about is if my node tells me that I received the Bitcoin and that you actually had that Bitcoin to give to me. That's all I care about.
That's it. So this is the property of money, scalability across space, that fiat has high scalability across space because, the bank network can actually, it doesn't matter if your bank is in Canada and my bank is in Europe, the banks will just, use communication channel to change the ledger, right? It takes more time though in fiat standard because there is, many,
because they're closed on weekends.
Intermediaries, there's no weekends. They have to do it kind of manually, and it can
10 people it has to go
control.
through.
Yeah, it's not really transparent, especially if you do this international ACH transfers, big wires, whatever. And of course, it can be censored at any moment. It's really, slow, cumbersome, expensive, and so on. It's based on trust and based on this old kind of archaic way of doing money. While
you're basically
Bitcoin,
taking on many layers of risk. You're taking on counterparty risk. You're taking on censorship risk. So fiat was a layer 2 technology built on gold to provide better salability across space because it's very expensive to send gold bars.
And sacrifice gold salability across time because fiat has terrible salability across time because you can create more fiat by issuing more debt, right? So we ended up basically sacrificing the whole civilization and all the wars that we had, all this tremendous destruction that fiat caused, fiat food, fiat fuels, fiat health, basically fiat, all of that in the 20th century came about because we kind of wanted to save money on gold settlement across space. So that's
basically price to pay.
We are not paying $3,000 for moving a bar of gold from New York to London, but we saved it here, but our cost
is societal integrity,
complete societal backwardation and retardation, and destruction. So
And
yeah,
it
not
seems
a
like
good
when we
trade-off.
went from when we packed on the layer 2 of fiat on top of gold, we untethered the integrity, right? Especially this notion
Exactly.
that the amount of gold can be manipulated
Yeah.
in an untruthful way means that okay, it doesn't matter what that second layer achieves in terms of convenience. If you remove the integrity and the truth from that system, it's worthless. It's actually
Yeah.
worse than worthless. And we've seen that where it just
Yeah.
literally degrades integrity society wide because money is the base foundation of how we communicate value.
Exactly.
So, and that, I would say the traditional property that I've come to learn, transportability, right? How easily can you transport it from one place to the next? So we've talked about durability, divisibility, transportability, scarcity, which I think, the big thing for me is like scarcity is the cost of entry to play the game of money. If you don't have scarcity, none of the other things matter, because in order for something to be money sustainably, it must be scarce. So if you don't have scarcity, it doesn't even actually matter if you have all the other properties. If you don't have scarcity, it's not good money, which is why fiat is shit, because the scarcity element has been obliterated, where 12 old dudes can make up their mind to create limitless amounts more tokens, which means that fiat is just shit money, right? It has all the conveniences to kind of lull people into this false sense of, oh, it's so much better because we don't have to move our gold anymore, or we'll hold it for you. You don't have to hold this and risk getting stolen. It's like, yeah, but we sacrifice scarcity, which is the entry cost to even play the money game. So scarcity, durability, divisibility, portability or transportability. Another one is fungibility, right? Like the idea that one unit must equal another unit, right? Regardless of what unit that is, right? Even if you don't know someone, if they have a unit, it's equal to what one unit of yours is. And, one Satoshi always equals one Satoshi.
Yeah.
Now, the issue with gold we run into is that you must assay, like you can assume that a gold coin equals a gold coin, but in order to truly verify and know for real, you must be able to assay that gold coin to make sure it's not tungsten. It's not a tungsten alloy that looks like gold. So I think even on the fungibility element, Bitcoin is far superior because it can be provably shown that one Satoshi equals one Satoshi, and you don't need a $3,000 assay kit, shitloads of energy, and lots of heat.
Exactly.
All you need is a small computer that can just validate for you, not by trusting anyone, for yourself, that one Satoshi equals one Satoshi, and in fact, the Satoshi you received is illegitimate. Yeah, it's so mind-boggling how superior Bitcoin is, and how little. I think what's even more mind-boggling is that people actually have zero understanding that properties of money are even a thing. Right? When you mention some of these things, it intuitively makes sense, right? Divisibility makes sense. Scarcity, people understand, like, things that are rare are more valuable. That's why Picasso is very valuable. So we've got those. Now, the two that I've kind of tacked on that I really like are confiscability. How easily can this form of money you have be stolen from you? And I think one thing that continuously blows my mind is the idea that Bitcoin has reduced in a significant way the profitability of theft.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is, I heard Michael Saylor riff on this on a podcast, and I listened to the section like 3 or 4 times because it really did actually shock me how profound that is, because it's no longer profitable to go up to someone with a $5 wrench and threaten to smash their head if they don't give you your Bitcoin, because if they smash your head, they get nothing. Right? If you've custody, this is the assumption that you've custodied in the right way. You're not just walking around with like your 12 words tattooed on your forehead. But the idea that it's not actually like, it's not profitable to try and steal from someone, because if you kill them, you don't get anything. If they don't give it to you, you don't get anything. So the incentive is actually to get just enough to disincentivize the violence, right? So if you give someone $100 in Bitcoin, they've gotten something, and if they try and get more, they might get nothing. So I think the idea that confiscability, the property of Bitcoin, like if you have 3 gold bars and you're walking around, number one, it's heavy as shit. Number two, it's pretty easily stolen, right? Someone could punch you in the face or bring a wrench, and like that gold's gone. You're never going to see it again. If you try and cross a border, if you don't believe me, take a gold bar and try and cross an international border. Let me know how that goes for you. You're not going to have your gold anymore. And then taxability is another one that I look at, right? Which kind of it helps me understand why property and homes are not a good form of money, right? This idea that the more easily something is taxed, the lesser quality form of money it is, I think.
Yep.
And, you know, like, I think those are really important. So we've gotten, are we missing any properties and money?
No. Yeah, I would say that confiscability and taxability is actually kind of one and the same, because I think
I
that
agree.
taxes are just a form of theft or extortion.
Good point.
They are done against the will of the other party. So yeah, with gold, yeah. So, and I would even say that basically that's another kind of sub property of salability across space, because all these forms of money that we have been talking about, they're all physical, right? And the metaphysical nature of Bitcoin basically lends itself to the fact that there is no way to, like, there is no way to force to kill you and take your Bitcoin, basically.
Right.
If you secure your Bitcoin in a proper way, as I said. With all the other physical monies, there is, as you said, calculation in which, you know, there is a certain amount that it costs, you know, for someone to attack and take the money, take the gold away, versus how much they are expecting to get. And sometimes it can be profitable for you know, someone to basically you know, wrench you or kill you and take your gold. So this is why one of the reasons why gold was more valuable in the bank vault is because the economies of scale of securing such larger quantities of gold were such that it was easier to secure one you know, bank vault with, you know, proper you know, kind of physical security.
Yep.
Rather than, you know, saving gold in your larger amounts of gold in your house, because your house is not really so secure. So in the past, there have been wars that you know, basically someone would invade your country and pillage your gold and so on. And also there is the security aspect of moving gold across space as well, because again, why fiat came about? Not just because it was faster and cheaper to move gold across space, it was more secure to move gold across space.
Right.
Like if you take let's say you are trading, you have a big, you know, trading ship across New York and London, and you move, I don't know, whatever, potatoes from United States to London, and whatever, tea from London to United States, and there is a large amount of gold that's in your ship that's going to be exchanged, then you have a lot higher chance of getting attacked by pirates, of getting the gold stolen, of getting the gold, you know, just lost. You know, there was shipwreckages that lost gold. So all of that is just additional cost, additional risk that lowers the salability of gold across space, increases its confiscability, right? Because then if you put it in the bank vault, I mean, it can be confiscated, right, by the sovereign, which was, you know, it didn't happen immediately, but over time, as more and more gold was kind of centralized across, you know, in bank vaults, we basically had a single British Empire had the largest, you know, Bank of England was the largest bank. The British pound was held its gold value, gold peg, very good. It, you know, trade flourished around the world, and you know, the temptation just came too big, you know, at some point, and that's when they actually started World War One, basically, because, you know, there's a nice in the Fiat Standard Safety's book, there is a nice chapter on how was the World War One financed by the Bank of England, their own documents that came up just, you know, in 2017. So basically they had this sealed throughout the whole century.
So
we didn't really, basically they tried to issue war bonds, but England,
no one bought them.
They wouldn't buy them, or they bought maybe 1/3 of the bonds necessary to go to war. And that's when they basically appointed two officials from the Bank of England to to buy those bonds in their name, and they printed the gold that they didn't have, right? And they bought the whole bond tranche, and that's how they were able to drag England into the World War One. That's how the fiat standard actually started.
Yeah, the playbook repeats every war, right? It's like they basically created the playbook, which then gets used constantly to go to war because war is profitable.
And then when you really think about it, World War One was really, really, completely unnecessary, devastating war that basically laid the ground for the World War II, right? Because you had this very, unstable situation after the World War One ended, that led to Hitler coming up. Weimar Republic went into hyperinflation, and all of that was just, then World War II started, fiat printer, gold printing came into even higher overdrive. So the World War II was even higher, even more destructive. And then the Cold War started. And then basically in 1971, we kind of went completely into the full fiat standard, right? So it's just insane how these things work, how it's bad, but thank God we have Bitcoin, which fixes all of that at its root. So it's really great. The fact that we can send money across Atlantic with each other without touching the fiat infrastructure, is absolutely amazing. That's really it's stunning. Just that, right? Just the fact that we can send money, let alone the fact that the money that we are sending has absolute scarcity, because even gold doesn't have absolute scarcity. Even gold constantly inflates its supply, and you cannot really, you can say that you will maintain your purchasing power over time, or maybe slightly increase it. But with Bitcoin, it's very likely that you are going to constantly have, large increases in purchasing power, as the supply basically gets cut in half, the marginal supply every 4 years. So it's completely different type of money that we never really, had a chance to even conceive about. So it's completely understandable that many people do not understand, how to really approach, how to use this. This is a new technology that it's
it's funny because I bought this kid's book, which is like a little kiddie book about Bitcoin, and it's like a story of Bitville, and it's actually really good. I give it to adults.
Bitcoin money, yeah.
That's the level that adults need to go to, because we have zero foundational understanding of money, the properties of money, functions of money, history of money. Like if people were just more history literate, I think they would be more up and up on, wow, in times of sound money, civilization flourished. We didn't have wars, people traded, it was beautiful. And then in times of fiat, the world gets dark as shit because it's open to manipulation. I think if people just saw that, they would have a much more robust background understanding of even having context to be able to make their own decisions, right? Like really, if all we did with baseline monetary education was help people understand, give them the tool, don't tell them what the best form of money is. We know it, but give them the tools to evaluate, to empower them to be able to evaluate the best form of money, because we know where that road leads. But people have to get there on their own. That is the ethos of Bitcoin, right? It's do the work to get there without having to trust anyone that that's the truth. Figure out the truth yourself by diving down into the fundamentals. And I think this idea that digitally we can scale education in a way we never have before, if you really make a compelling, and this is not an easy thing, but it's simple but not easy, make a really compelling digital education platform where a 5-year-old can go there and navigate. An 80-year-old can go there and navigate and can understand everything you say, because it's so simple and the landscape of what's available now is so different than when, like, I think back to when I got into Bitcoin initially, and I was like, I was listening to everything Antonopoulos said, I would listen to. But even then, the variety, the images, the graphics, the stuff out there now is so overwhelming and so beautifully simple and elegant, that it's just a totally different landscape. Like we're really it almost seems like every bear market, we have a more robust foundation to then peg up to the next level, because the education just up levels in such a big way. And one thing I'm noticing now is that despite Bitcoin, the fiat number being down right now, people are actually more curious about Bitcoin right now than they have been in previous
Sure.
like bear cycles, which I find very interesting. And it might be an indicator that, like, all right, well, it's funny how when Bitcoin shoots up, people all of a sudden get interested. Whereas when Bitcoin goes way down, they lose interest. But it seems like, at least this is just in my personal circle, but it seems like people are more curious now, even in a bear cycle, which could be an indicator that, maybe we're starting to go on the up part of the hockey stick inflection point, because it kind of does, it happens slow, then it happens all at once. And yeah, I just think the properties of money are so incredibly powerful to really knuckle down on. They might not be sexy or exciting, but at the end of the day, that is the foundation everyone has to kind of step on in order to develop their own understanding of Bitcoin. And I've found a lot of value myself in trying to articulate these, because as every time I try something different or try and approach it in a different way, I learn so much about better ways of articulating it and what metaphors to use or what ways to convey these properties of money, which can seem dry but are incredibly important to people so that they actually want to understand it. And when they do, like you said, it's like that thing you look at where you can't see anything, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. I think the properties of money, they might take a bit of time to trickle into people's consciousness to them, for them to be able to apply in their own mental model, or more importantly, to actually, like, I think the painful part for people is, in order to understand money, you must uncover that fiat has made you a slave your entire life. And that discomfort, until the discomfort of, until the pain you're having with regards to the money you're using is higher than the discomfort of admitting you've been deceived, equalizes, it's way more comfortable to revert back and saying there's no problem. Right? Like this whole saying of ignorance is bliss. I think this is where, in Canada especially, people are just too damn comfortable. We don't have enough. We don't have enough obvious. I'm not going to say we don't have enough problems. We don't have enough obvious problems that affect the lucky people for them to have a true reason to want to understand money. The truckers did, because they saw firsthand. Anyone who donated to the truckers got a nudge that censorability is a real thing with fiat. When someone could just turn off your bank account with a button, I didn't know that could happen. That's uncomfortable. Maybe I should learn about money and what other forms of money I can use that reduce that risk in future. So I think it's just all humans react to pain. This is like this fundamental truth that I feel deep in my soul. It's like all change is achieved through pain. Until someone experiences enough pain, they have no nudge to change. And when you're changing your fundamental understanding of money, that's, the scale of the change must be directly related to the scale of the pain that you're experiencing in order to make that change, which is why some people literally with health have to get to the point of catastrophe before they're like, oh shit, I need to work on this. Whereas before, they know something's wrong, but they're like, the pain's not enough that I really have to spend time and energy on this. And one thing I've been thinking of these days too is this notion of debt. Like, when you started talking about how debt is a tool for control. If you're in debt, to me, I have a sense of control over you. And, I sent Robert Breedlove a message, and we might riff on this in future, but this idea that financial debt and disease, which is health debt, are like this very, very similar parallel, where the system is,
and they may even cause one another.
Pardon?
I think also that there may be a causal relationship with.
Yes, I agree. I think fiat is the root cause of this
being in debt. Definitely.
But this idea that being diseased means you are in health debt. Being financially in debt means that you're in monetary debt. They're both tools to induce fear and to keep people under their control. And so they're not incentivized. The system is oriented, 100% oriented to keep you diseased and to keep you in debt. And it does that by not giving you any idea that you're diseased until there's a big problem. And it does that with the finance world by basically giving you these carrots. Right? The reality is, if I lever up in the fiat world, I can make much more fiat dollars. I take on more risk. But that temptation right? The temptation to just mortgage your house instead of buy it, because you can literally get paid to own debt because your asset is appreciating faster, and your asset is appreciating a lot because we've monetized homes, and your debt is deflating because as they print more units of currency, the units of debt you owe, there becomes less of them. And it's such a sinister incentive structure. It really is.
It's playing with people's minds, and it makes perfect logical sense that if your interest rate on your mortgage is, I don't know, 10 or 8% or 5% or however per year,
3% right now, even
3%. It makes sense to take on this mortgage, and then if you're a bit smarter, then buy Bitcoin with it, and then of course Bitcoin is going to appreciate at a faster pace than your mortgage, and so on, blah blah blah. The problem with all of that is that you are not taking into account the uncertainty of the future, right? It's literally, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, both in good things that can happen or bad things that can happen. You don't know. You are taking the risk. You are taking quantifiable risk for the uncertainty, which is completely uncertain for you. You don't know what's going to happen to you in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. You don't know, but you already made a decision to get into debt for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years, however long your
lifetime. Mortgage
in a lifetime,
in French is actually death document.
Exactly.
Mort. It's like insane. So it's like basically you're signing up for debt for your entire life till you're dead. That's crazy.
So what Bitcoiners will learn how to do is when they get into under the full Bitcoin standard, and when they learn how budgeting really works, now you start to understand. You basically start doing this. You start treating your money across time. Okay, you start to understand that, let's say you have saved up, right? So you are looking at your savings, what you have already. You're looking at your past money that you already have, the coins that are on UTXOs that you control, the private key. This is the money that you have, right? With 100%
your surplus.
Your money, your purchasing power. That's your money. And now, according to when you start running your budget, you will know what are approximately your expenses for, some certain, let's say a house, your shelter, your basically where you live. That has certain cost, let's say monthly cost. If you are renting an apartment or a house, you have a certain monthly cost. If you own a house, you have a certain cost of maintaining the house in order or whatever. So you will know how much of these months, let's say that you are renting a place, and you will know exactly how much is your monthly rent, and how much of this monthly rent have you saved up. And let's say in the bull market, what's going to happen is that your savings in the let's say rent category are going to probably go up around 10 times. Okay, every 4 years probably you will just 10x your purchasing power, which means that if you, for example, if you had 3 months of savings, in your rent category, suddenly you have 30 months. Now what you need to do is you are at that point, you are incentivized to basically prepay your rent, let's say 24 months in advance, 2 years in advance. And you come to your landlord and you say, look, I want to pay you right now for the next 24 months that I'm gonna stay in the place. And can you give me a discount, because I'm gonna pay you a lump sum today? And your landlord is most likely gonna be happy to give you a discount. Yeah. because you are prepaying for a lot. You are taking out his risk, his tenant risks, his occupancy risk, all of that. And what happens now? Just imagine you do that for your shelter, right? You do the same thing for your food, right? If you, for example, if you are buying meat on a weekly basis, maybe you save up, 12 or 24 months of food budget, right? You will meet a rancher. You will say, okay, I'm going to pay you right now.
I'm going to buy a cow.
For a cow. And then I will, when is the time for slaughter, then I will get the meat and so on. Or you can buy a quarter or a half of the beef and store it, whatever. You can pre-purchase, you can prepay your future expense today, right? Because Bitcoin appreciated so much, and you have much more savings. Same thing with, for example, with transportation. If you want to buy a car, you buy it. Of course, in the bull market, when you hit your savings target, you buy it. But you also try to negotiate with your car dealer or a car mechanic. Can I prepay you, some sort of guarantee that you will service my car? I will drive this car for the next 4 years, and all of that expenses. I want to pay you right now. Can you give me a discount for that? Most of them will be happy to give you a discount. It's like paying for a gym membership. You will get, if you pay a whole year of gym membership, you will get 2 months for free, basically, with most gyms. So you want to pay in advance. If you want to go to a vacation, you have, like, I don't know how many vacations, you prepay it in advance, right? You pay today for a vacation that you are going to take a year from now. Your summer vacation for 2023 or for 2024, or winter vacation. Again, the earlier you book your vacation, the better deal you're going to get, right? When the farther away your flight is booked, the cheaper it is. So what happens now? Look, just imagine this. Not only you have, in the bull market, if you are 100% Bitcoin and you budgeted your money along the way, you get discounts and you prepay in advance, right? And now what happens when Bitcoin starts going into bear market again? Your monthly expenses just drop down drastically. You don't have to pay your rent, right? Because you prepaid it in advance. You don't have to buy meat every day or every week. You prepaid it in advance. You can take all of these vacations that you have already prepaid. Basically, your monthly outflows drop drastically, and then you can focus your time to increase your monthly inflows because you have low cost. You have prepaid all for everything. You are completely at peace. Everything is paid off. Everything is paid in advance, and you just need to focus on stacking, accumulating, and that's what you do during the bear market, during the Bitcoin's purchasing power when it goes down. And then you just continue to accumulate, right? And you hit your savings targets. Now the savings targets are going to be even higher. Now you're not going to have, 3 months saved, right? Because you have prepaid your rent for 24 months. Now you have 24 months of rent saved. You hit the bull market. It 10x's your purchasing power. Now you have 240 months of rent prepaid, saved up. Now what are you going to do? Well, you're probably going to either upgrade your rent, or maybe you can buy, if you want to own that piece of property.
Which is the same. I mean, buying a house is the same thing as prepaying your rent for your life.
Exactly. It is. Although right now, houses in general, they have monetary premium. It doesn't matter. Basically, you are free to do whatever you want. You can either buy, you can prepay the rent, you can upgrade the rent. It's up to you. What you are learning how to do is you are learning the skill of planning your expenses in the future. So instead of wasting time trying to predict what Bitcoin is going to do in the future, you stop wasting a second on it. You just look at the Bitcoin's purchasing power right now. You rebalance the budget, and you learn how to look forward for your own expenses. How do you want? What are your financial goals? What are your savings targets? What is the thing that you want to experience? That's where you have full control. You still don't know exactly because future is still uncertain. But I know, for example,
but you've created certainties.
Exactly.
For an uncertain future.
The great thing is that when you plan your own future, right, even if you end up not doing exactly what you planned, you still have this possibility to change your mind along the way, which you don't have if you are in debt. I mean, you can change your mind and get out of debt, but it's very, very hard. The longer you are in debt, the higher your debt amount is, compared to your asset values, the harder it is to actually break free of that. While when you're debt free, you just move along in this timeline and you decide, okay, maybe I have saved up, maybe I was saving up for this car, maybe, after 2 years of saving and you actually reached, your savings target in the bull market, you maybe you change your mind. Maybe you don't want that car. Maybe you want something else. Maybe you don't want to own a car at all. Maybe you want to, I don't know, ride a bicycle or own a motorcycle or whatever. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you are flexible to do whatever you want. And the thing is, the great thing about not getting into debt is that you can actually leverage your financial power, your financial position when you are negotiating with others, because you are, again, you are incentivized to pay now for something that you are going to consume in the future, right? You want to pay now and consume in the future versus consume now and pay in the future. Because when you consume now and pay in the future, you are on the shorter end of the stick, so to speak. While if you are paying now for something that you're going to consume in the future, you're always in a much, much more advantageous position in terms of negotiation. You're always going to get a better deal and so on.
Yeah, you have
so
leverage
what's going to happen
versus the other side having leverage. If you're in debt, you have leverage if you're in surplus.
So when someone tells me, look, I can get a mortgage 3, 4, 5, whatever percent, I can get a mortgage, I can take out the mortgage, I can buy Bitcoin with it, I'm going to make more money because Bitcoin is going to appreciate so much and more than I'm paying on the interest. I'm just going to say, no, you did not calculate, you do not take into an account what is going to happen. For example, with me, I'm debt free, I'm budgeting, I know I prepay my expenses in advance, which actually allows me, for example, to take some, let me give you an example. You take someone takes a mortgage and commits to paying off this mortgage month by month. And in 2 years, 2 years time, there is an opportunity for him to basically reduce his inflow for 3 or 6 months. Let's say he's going to be without paycheck for 6 months, or with maybe 20% of his usual paycheck, of his usual inflow for 6 months. But then after these 6 months, his paycheck is going to double. Okay. So now what's going to happen? He cannot take this risk, right? Someone who is in debt cannot risk being without income for more than a month or two, however long is his, contract with the loan, with the bank, right? If you don't pay your mortgage for 2 or 3 months, the bank is gonna, evict you and foreclose you and sell your house, right? Sell the collateral. Yeah. So you cannot really afford to take the time off from your usual work to basically have a chance of doubling your income, right? So you end up not taking that risk, while I can actually take that risk. I can actually increase my income because I'm not beholden I have savings, right? My savings, the longer I hold savings, the longer I'm out of debt, the higher my savings, the longer my savings accumulate, the more I age my money, the more risks I can take, right? And I can then actually increase my income much more. Let's say someone is paying, 20 or 30 years mortgage. I mean, over the 20 or 30 years, I'm going to end up having my income is going to income increase is going to dwarf someone who is in debt, basically for something that he already, kind of consumed way, in the past. And I'm just, I'm constantly flexible. I can navigate whatever. I can change my mind. I can, if I purchase a house, okay, I'm going to purchase it with cash, right? It doesn't matter. So then this house is just, it's my asset. I own it. I can live in it. I can rent it out. I can do whatever I want with it, and I can sell it if I want, right? I can liquidate house. So just imagine this. Again, Bitcoin's volatility is actually beautiful. I like it. I mean, it allows me to take advantage of it. It's once you learn how to do it, you understand how it's done. I mean, for me, to be honest, I would be much happier that Bitcoin's appreciation would be more linear. Let's say Bitcoin appreciates on average 10% every month. Okay. That if no one would take out any debt, if no one would get into debt, there would be no leverage in the system. Basically, Bitcoin would appreciate, let's say, around 10% a month. Some months, maybe it's going to appreciate 15%, some months, maybe 5%, but on average, 10%, and that's it. You get your paycheck in a month, it's going to buy you 10% more. It's a lot. It's fast if you zoom out, on a yearly basis, but it's still not, it's not like you're going to be a millionaire, so to speak, overnight, right? That would be much easier. Everyone would get Bitcoin immediately if you said, listen, every month your purchasing power is going to go up 10%. But the problem with current situation is, and I don't really see it going away until the fiat really, really shrinks, because you're still having a lot of leverage, is that yes, Bitcoin on average, let's say it appreciates 120% a year, CAGR, compounded annual growth rate. But the way it appreciates is, let's say, in year one, it goes, 10x up, right? Or 15x up in a year, then it drops 80% down, and then it goes sideways for the next 2 years. And then the next cycle starts.
Right.
Up 10x, 15x, drop down 80%, sideways chopping for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And people are then completely confused. What's this going on? They are looking at the linear chart. They don't really zoom out. They don't look at the logarithmic chart. It's numbers are moving away super fast. The volatility is super high. They don't know how to kind of grasp it. It's hard. But if you just embrace it and take the way to really take advantage of the fiat system is actually to just align yourself with, start to ride the volatility wave. Just take advantage of the bull market, take advantage of the bear market, which means you save, you decrease your outflows, you increase your inflows in the bear market. And then when the bull market comes, you hit your savings targets. That's when you spend more. You actually take time off your work in order to think about how you're going to spend all of your money that you have saved, right? Because you are incentivized to do so. You want to prepare. You don't want to miss bull market's appreciation, because it's gonna follow up with, the more leverage there is in the system, the faster Bitcoin appreciates, in parabolic rise, the higher, the lower it's gonna kind of drop. The faster it appreciates, the faster it's gonna drop down. That's the nature of it's still gonna continue to monetize, over time. It's still gonna continue to grow, but the way it grows is erratic. So you want to take advantage of the bull market by simply take time off of work and think about how do you see your next 1 or 2 or 3 years, by the next halving. You can basically have this almost like 4 years timelines where you want to prepay, you want to expect the next bear market, you want to prepay your expenses for the next bear market in the bull market. And that's what will allow you to have even higher savings rate in the bear market. When someone gets into that to buy more Bitcoin, which usually happens in the bull market, right? Because they are all euphoric and Bitcoin is going to the moon, and let's put some more fuel to the fire, and I'm gonna take out a mortgage and then I'm gonna buy more Bitcoin. What happens when you do that? Well, you just increase your outflow rate in the bear market instead of doing the opposite. You want to basically minimize the amount of money you are spending in the bear market. You are actually taking on debt, which is increasing your monthly payments, right? If you get into debt and buy a car in the bull market, You get into debt and you buy a house, or you get a mortgage. You get credit card loan. You get, I don't know, whatever, cash, whatever. You settle yourself with that in the bull market. Just imagine the psychological pain you will feel when you hit the bear market. Bitcoin is down, 70, 80%. And now you have all of this monthly payments
overhead.
that you need to make.
You're stuck. You have non-optional overhead.
Think, oh my God, what did I do? Why did I do this? Why? Just every month the paycheck, the bills come, and your monthly payments come, and you just if you just start to calculate how much sats are you now missing out. You cannot exchange it for satoshis because you're paying off some stupid thing that you bought a year ago, right? That you don't even like anymore because you didn't work for it. That's another thing. There is no way that you can compare consuming something that you didn't earn, so to speak. You don't have the proof of work. Your soul you can't fool your soul. Your soul knows that you are living in a house that you still didn't earn enough to actually buy it, or I mean, if you rent it, it's different, right? Because then you are just renting it for a month or for 2 months or however long you're actually buying time, right? You are spending time making money and you are buying time. So the time is your ultimate resource. That's so important. Like literally, whatever you are doing, you are selling your time and you are buying money. Of course, you don't want to buy and hold money that's robbing you out of your time. You want to buy money that's gonna actually increase the amount of time that you can purchase with it, right? That you can exchange it later. So that's Bitcoin is the only money that can do that, right? Yeah. And again, it doesn't matter what money you are getting paid in. Doesn't matter. You can get paid in Canadian dollars. I can get paid in euros. Someone can get paid in US dollars. Someone can get paid in Indian rupees or Russian ruble or British pound or Swiss franc or whatever shitcoin currency or I don't know, Turkish lira. Doesn't matter. What matters is what you are doing with the money that when you get it, where are you converting it to, right? Do you take the easy fiat route where, okay, this money is not volatile, it's stable, and I know what to expect, and I can't take, I don't know what I would do if tomorrow I come to a grocery store and I don't know, everything is more expensive by 10%, which can happen with Bitcoin, right? Sure. With Bitcoin, today, price of my coffee can go up 10% or can go down 10%, only in a daily basis. Most people experience 10% or 15%, increases or decreases in purchasing power over a year. That's the average, inflation rate is around 14%, 7 or 8% on US dollar, which is amongst the strongest, the hardest currency, still 8% a year, right? It takes a year to feel the increase in prices. I can feel the increase in prices 7-8% literally on a daily basis, right? I saw Bitcoin basically jumping up and down 20% in a day. It's crazy. But I also think that when you really feel that nothing is happening to you, you didn't die, you actually you get used to the volatility. You actually understand that
you take advantage of it. It's not just getting used to it. It's actually something you can leverage.
Exactly. You can take leverage of it. You can use it to guide you, to basically orient you what you should do right now. If the volatility is coming on downside, right, your purchasing power drops, naturally you're gonna tighten your spending and increase your income, increase your inflows. Right. Make sure that you can make more money during the bear market. And the opposite happens in the bull market. You are literally 100% aligned, and that's the only thing that you need to do. And really, you get better with it over time. Because I know for this bull market, from my personal experience, for example, in this bull market in 2021, well, it was unusual bull market because we had two tops, right? One in May 2021 and another in November 2021. It's kind of crazy I literally thought that we will break 100K by summer 2021. I
know,
was
same.
almost 99% sure of that. But China happened, whatever, minor exodus, whatever. Okay, doesn't matter. But I mean, I still did most of my larger expenses in 2021. My office rent, my the big office equipment, a new laptop, a new phone, new scooter, new whatever. I mean, we spend a lot of new wardrobe, all of that, a lot of traveling, vacations, going out in restaurants and so on. So I'm kind of very, I don't feel like, oh my God, now I have to. It's not. I'm kind of almost like fed up at some point. At some point, like going out every couple of days, it's kind of gets boring.
It loses its novelty.
Yeah, and it's Now I actually enjoy, kind of this more frugal living, which is not. I mean, it's not like I'm not spending. It's just that I'm less.
You're more careful with your pen is sharper. I like that term, where it's like you're making more informed economic decisions. You're going deeper into like, do I need this? Is this essential? I have less to work with. And that's a brilliant way of like a proof of work life is so different than a proof of stake, than a proof. You know what? Let's just call it proof of debt, because really most people, someone who buys their home outright, will, number one, probably buy a home that's much more reasonable in price, because there's a big difference between spending 100,000 euro and 350,000 euro. Whereas the proof of debt person doesn't give a shit that it's 350,000 euro, because all they're doing is signing on for a contract for 30 years to pay that off. And so they're essentially, that house for them is proof of debt, which makes it something that controls you, right? Your house now controls you. Whereas the proof of work person, they are in control of their destiny, and they are not. And that house is so much sweeter knowing you worked for it, right? Like this idea that, you can do a marathon on a scooter, or you can train really hard to run it. The marathon you complete by running it is way sweeter because of all the work you put in to earn that. And really, a house with a giant mortgage is an unearned house, and it's simply proof of debt.
And it's like a curse. It's not a blessing. It's like a curse. You basically, it's so hard. And not just the house, anything that you buy on debt, anything that you buy with debt is kind of, it's not yours really. Until you pay it off, it's not really yours. And the fact that you are kind of using this thing and paying it off. I remember, well, I got out of that completely in 2018. But the last thing that I bought on, I think 24 months credit card was a laptop, a MacBook Pro 13-inch. I remember in 2018. And I bought this thing, and I of course I had all the rationale why I need to buy this, because I'm gonna produce this and that. I'm gonna make money, business, whatever. I mean, whatever. I just wanted to buy it, and I didn't want to save up so much for it, And I just said, okay, I can buy this with cash, but I don't want to spend so much money, because then I will not have a lot of money left, and then let's just put it on credit card.
Yeah, pay later.
And I
worry about it later.
Worry about it later, yeah. And then the fact is that this, I remember this. I spent the summer, using this laptop, but month after month, I just didn't get to it to really use it as the way I planned it to use. I just there was something wrong about it in general. Just no, doesn't work. And then I got rid of it in November 2018. Just sold it, paid back the credit card, cut out the credit card. They basically begged me. It was American Express. They said, no, why are you doing this? No, I said, no, I don't want to do it. No, but you will get this and that. We have this new whatever. Great. No, I want to. No, but please think about it once more. I mean, we are here. Oh my God. No, I don't want it. So when I bought a new laptop so look at the great things that happened after that. when I started working, so I used my old computer in 2019, and in 2020, when I had the opportunity to start working with Safedin, I still use this big old iMac that I had from 2012, right? It's old Mac, it still works, but it's kind of slow. It's, the screen is big. I can do most of the stuff on it, but it's kind of slow. It's not really good. I couldn't really edit videos or whatever. Just too slow. Old thing. And then I started working with Safe, and there was certain things that I had to do. I had to get a laptop, right? I just had to get it because I couldn't really move
an
and
efficient
work
tool.
at the same time. Yeah, it's more efficient tool. But I decided, okay, I'm gonna buy. That's when I already got on a full Bitcoin standard, and I said, okay, I'm gonna buy a laptop, but I'm gonna buy something that's gonna be as cheap as possible. It was just after the halving, so that was, I think, in September, maybe August or September 2020. I remember I thought, okay, I have to buy a laptop, but I don't want to get into debt. No, I don't want to buy a new MacBook. I always liked Apple stuff, but I need a laptop. So I bought Acer laptop. It was pretty cheap. It was a great configuration, but it was much cheaper. Three times less than the equivalent MacBook at the time. I installed Linux on it, right? So I learned for 6 months. I learned, a lot on how the open source software work. I sharpened my technical skills that ended up being very helpful for building the website and all the technical infrastructure for Safedin's business and so on. And he also uses he likes to use Linux open source operating system to write his books on. So I could actually troubleshoot some of the issues that he had. So that was great. That actually made me more useful for him. And we started the bull market in what was November 2020. We hit all-time high, right? And we started pumping up. And I was I already had more than enough money to buy a new laptop, because as good as Linux laptop was, the cheap one, I still wanted to buy a Mac, because Mac is really much more user friendly. It's it just works. Linux, you have to spend a lot of time to constantly kind of make it work. Anyway, the new MacBooks M1 MacBook Air came out, I think, and I bought it immediately. I think it was January or February 2021, in the pump up of the bull market. And yeah, of course, with cash outright, no debt, whatever. And I still use it. I still love it. I still have it's not that I'm basically, even if I wanted to upgrade it right now, right, in the bear market, I would still get more sats than I paid it for, even with the depreciation. But I don't really want to upgrade it. I was looking at M2 MacBook, or the new MacBook Air. Not
you have
so
to be doing high level editing stuff to really see a significant difference in performance.
Yeah. And I'm gonna use up this for it works great. It's very portable. The battery life is great. Just I don't need anything more. And it's just the fact that I don't have that's the main point. The fact that I don't have debt. If I follow the logic of many Bitcoiners who are advocating getting into debt, I would basically right now I'd either not have certain things or be simply saddled with that. I couldn't imagine, with Bitcoin hitting its 4-year moving average prices, like basically we are hovering around 4-year moving average. This is massive opportunity to stack.
This is prime sat stacking time.
Yeah, now is the time to accumulate. Now, most of these guys who were advocating getting into debt, now they are bearish. Now they want to be, they're waiting for Bitcoin to go.
We can buy their sats.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to, purchasing power to go down. Because again, even if it goes down another 50% from here, I'm just gonna rebalance my budget, and I'm gonna hit even more inflow. I'm gonna stack even more, because I don't have that. That's the main thing. I cannot drill this point home stronger.
Here's a good heuristic. The things you buy with savings, you own.
Exactly.
The things you buy with debt own you.
Exactly. They end up owning you.
So,
and you end up saving up for these stupid things, and you don't really appreciate them. You will find faults with the things that you bought on debt, and the faults with those things, nothing is perfect, right? But the faults that you will see with things that you bought on debt are gonna drill you. Like it's so irritating. It's not yours. You still have to slave away, and this thing pisses you off, right? And the opposite is with when you own them outright. You just like them. You use up all its useful life of the thing over time, and before you buy it, you also get this satisfaction of anticipation. That's what we were talking about last time, of research, anticipation, working, saving for it, right? It's sweeter. The longer you do it, the harder you work for it, the sweeter it's going to be when you actually buy it. That's why I'm much happier with something that, with all of the things that I own. I'm just happy with it. It's just a different mindset. And my argument is that over time, this benefit, psychological benefit, spiritual benefit, however you want to call it, accumulates so much that you end up actually generating more wealth over time than if you mathematically, you are getting into debt. The debt is cheaper than the appreciation of Bitcoin, but I think it doesn't work out over time, especially over time, because you are not calculating what is being in debt, the state of being in debt, actually doing to your capacity of
your health. It's really your health, right? It's
like your health, your everything.
Yeah, your mental
spouse,
health.
Like all of this stuff is just, this is clean, simple way of taking full advantage of Bitcoin, being very comfortable with volatility, and in fact, taking advantage of the volatility, because other people don't understand it. So you have so much more I would much more like for everyone to understand what Bitcoin is, for everyone to get out of that, and then we would all kind of appreciate our money slowly without too much, oscillation. But, if many people still have to find out that is not worth it. It's not worth it.
Yes.
Because even if you succeed with your first loan, you pay it off or whatever, you kind of end up with more Bitcoin because of that. That's just gonna confirm I can do it again. And why wouldn't I do it with a bit more leverage, right? It's like traders. If trader actually starts using leverage and he actually starts making money on leverage, what's he gonna do, right? Is he gonna take out
more?
No, he's just gonna leverage up even more. That's what us humans do. So if we understand that, if we know that, why not just switch it around, learn how to do it, different way. On a Bitcoin standard, getting into that, you don't have to pull consumption from the future. You actually want to just pay from the past for the consumption in the future. That's the beautiful thing. The older your money, older your sats that you are paying are, the farther away in the future you can push your consumption, which will lower the price of that consumption. It's beautiful. It's hard to explain. It's easier to explain with examples. I know my first sats I bought in July 2014 at just $20 worth of Bitcoin at $600.
Yeah.
But I still didn't spend that old. That's old money, right? It's 8 years old.
Dude, that's like a keepsake UTXO that has
exactly.
meaning beyond just the purchasing power.
Yeah, but the thing is that when I spend that, the purchasing power is going to be so high of that old thing
Yeah.
right? And
So the hidden costs, I think what you're getting at is like there are hidden costs to debt, both in terms of your mental health, in terms of the risks and uncertainties. Because the other thing people don't really consider to its full extent is like the interest rate being charged on that debt, you also have no control over. Like, what if in a month your interest rate doubles? So now your debt burden is not even what you thought it was. You weren't planning for that. So I think there's hidden costs to debt. You can either own things or have things own you. When you own them, your relationship with that thing is fundamentally different because you are not a slave to that thing. And whether you realize it consciously or not, it's in there and it changes your relationship to the thing that you own, which you know you didn't really earn, right? It's like this resentment where it's like, I'm using this thing, if it gives me trouble, it gives me trouble and I don't even own it and I'm paying for it still, it's like this nasty, the con column just grows over time. Especially if you're in hard times, but you have no option but to not pay that thing, whether it's a mortgage or a payment or whatever. And you mentioned 4-year moving average, and I think that's really the only number I really care about in terms of number one, it's always going up. It goes up slowly, but it goes up. It's much more stable. And to me, it's like the trade-off you're making is you can either accept short-term volatility and get long-term stability, or you can do the inverse where you get short-term stability and long-term guaranteed downside volatility with fiat. So it's like by choosing to accept short-term volatility, you are giving yourself a reliable, predictable foundation for building wealth. And with the 4-year moving average, that's a really beautiful number because you look at that on a chart and it just marches up consistently. And you get there by zooming out. And it also gives you an idea of how much of an opportunity is there to buy sats right now. Well, the spot price has only dipped below the 4-year moving average 4 times in Bitcoin's history. We are in one of them now. And that is, for me, that's my primary indicator when I zoom out and say, like, are we in a bull or bear? Well, where does the current spot price compare to the 4-year moving average? And that tells me whether, the opportunity cost of me buying something I don't need is way higher when the spot price is below the moving average, because I'm sacrificing way more Satoshis. And so I'm more careful with what I do. I'm more frugal. And it does turn it, it's not like I'm sacrificing and living a miserable life to buy an extra Satoshi, but it turns into this fun game where it's like, well, this thing is this donut is either $4 or 20,000 Satoshis. It's like, well, if 20,000 Satoshis in 4 years from now is worth like 1,000 donuts, I'll sacrifice this donut for 1,000 in future, an option to buy 1,000 in future. And it, it sounds like your life is now shaped by Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is influencing the way you live with a underpinning of truth, almost to the point where it's like, I love this analogy. It's like you have a mirror and it's full of dust. So you can't really see anything. It's unclear. It's blurry. Living in debt is like staring at a blurry mirror all day. You make the best decision possible, but at the end of the day, you don't have clarity because what you're actually, your view is being manipulated. Whereas Bitcoin is like, you wipe the dust off, you get a clear picture. Maybe you don't like what you see as much, but it's an accurate view that's non-manipulated. So your decisions can actually be made grounded in reality, however uncomfortable that reality might make you. But it's better to be uncomfortable with reality than happy with some manipulated form of reality that doesn't reflect truth, which will eventually catch up with you. And it seems like you getting out of debt, going on a Bitcoin standard, you've wiped the mirror. It's a clear mirror. You can make economic decisions in alignment with Bitcoin, which actually allows you to benefit way more in the end because you're spending more when the price is high and accumulating more when the price is low. This is like your life has turned into a DCA. Really?
Complete.
That's really cool.
And it's very important to do both, right? Someone will say, no, I'm not gonna spend more in bull market. Well, if you don't spend more in the bull market, you're actually kind of sabotaging your capacity to stack more in the next bear market. Future. You are costing yourself, right? The fact that you are, you feel FOMO and you don't want to spend anything in the bull market. No, because you are spending you are reducing your future outflows, right? When you can stack more. So when you spend in the bull market. So again, as you said, that we are sacrificing short-term volatility for long-term appreciation versus with fiat, we are kind of gaining short-term stability for long-term depreciation.
Yeah.
I would even say that it's not even a sacrifice. Like short-term volatility, if you know how to run a zero-based budget and how to balance your budget, it's not even a sacrifice, right? Once you understand what you need to do, once you start doing it, it's not bad at all right? It's just normal, right? Normal thing.
Just life.
You just get used to the fact that nothing that you look at, priced in Bitcoin is gonna be stable, so to speak. The prices can change, whatever. The price of the books are changing on a weekly basis 20-30% in Bitcoin. Doesn't matter. Okay, they're changing. I don't care. I don't care how much they are changing. I care about how much books can I buy, right? Maybe this week I was able to buy 500 books. Next week, maybe I will be able to buy, I don't know, 450 books or 550 books. Doesn't matter, because I'm going to either not buy a single one or buy one or two. So it's like, okay, it's volatile, it's changing, but I don't care. That's why people who say Bitcoin cannot work as money because it's not stable. No, stability is not stable. Stability of purchasing power is not one of the necessary ingredients of money. Money can be, I can imagine Bitcoin never stopping its extreme changes in purchasing power, and still I'll be happy to use it because I know that this money over the long term is appreciating at a supreme rate, and nobody can stop it because nobody can make more of it, right? The more people demand to hold it, demand to use it, the only way to resolve that issue is for the purchasing power to continue to go up, right? That there is no other way. So I want to use that money. If it's not stable, I don't care. It can increase the volatility. I will just
recalibrate. And one thing I'm really looking forward to in October when I come visit you is like I'm very excited to just see the system at a broad view, so that I can get better at explaining it to people I know.
I will show you, because it's very easy. Like every time I go to a grocery store or I go to a coffee or whatever, we just take there is an app on the phone. You need a budget. It's a web app and it's a mobile app. Literally this morning we went for a coffee. I paid for the coffee, and while we were sitting down, I just
plugged it in,
entered the transaction. That's it. It took me less than 15 seconds, right? And it's in there, and it's deducted, one part of the money from the category of going out, coffee shops, whatever, restaurants, and so on. The other was from the giving category, which was for the tip for the waiter, right? One part for that, one part for that. No, it's in. And
another thing that's very interesting is if all Bitcoiners did this, you are actually acting as a shock absorber for volatility as a single person, because when the price is high, you're spending more. When the price is low, you're buying more, which also makes it so that there's never a bad thing, because when the price is high, that's great. You can buy more things, you can spend more. When the price is low, that's great. You can accumulate more of the world's soundest money for cheaper. It's all good. Price goes up, price goes down. Either scenario is good.
Yep. And even more, I'm like pushing and proposing and evangelizing this idea of people to get out of debt, right? So I will tell everyone, no, get out of debt, pay off your debt. I'm decreasing the supply of fiat, because when you pay off the debt, you literally destroy that fiat, right? Right. And then you reduce the future demand for more fiat creation for your side when you don't, because you are never going to get into that again. So the fiat is actually going down, right? Which actually, like the deflationary force that you are doing on fiat, you at least help those poor people who only hold fiat cash balances, because you are not contributing to the inflation for there. Like when you take out a mortgage and you get yourself into that, like who are you hurting? You're hurting the poorest of the poor, right? For some old lady that can't meet their, she's starving now. You are taking on mortgage and you are devaluing her cash even more.
I never thought of that. But really every time you take on debt, you're inflating.
exactly, you are inflating. And
Wow.
why do you want, you're inflating and you are increasing the volatility of Bitcoin because you are increasing the amount of leverage that people can take on. And you're basically, you are confusing. I mean, it's not like you will not change the trajectory of Bitcoin.
Yeah, you're not moving the needle, but you are in a certain extent.
But you are making it harder for
Yeah.
average people to get a grasp of what's going on. If they see Bitcoin moving up parabolic in such a short amount of time, of course they're gonna get huge FOMO and they will move, heads on, or they're gonna say, no, this is a scam. This cannot happen. This is just a bubble, and then it's crashed. And then they look at just a year back, and I told you it's crashed. No, boy, but it crashed, on higher, the lower highs, higher lows, right? Every time. But, all of that is just extra work that you have to explain to people because people are getting into that. If no one would get into that, just imagine this, everyone who has that right now, it's not going to happen. But imagine if that happened. They said, okay, I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to sell my whatever. It would explode, but Bitcoins would actually, and go into the full Bitcoin standard. I mean, Bitcoin will just appreciate on a very stable, predictable manner, right? There will still be periods when people are kind of spending less, which means that the prices of everything drop down because people are not buying, right? So the inventory is filling up, so the prices go down. At some point, the prices go down enough where people start to buy and to spend their Bitcoin, which is when Bitcoin's purchasing power will start to kind of drop a little bit, right? So you will still have this volatility in prices, but it's going to be much more smooth, much more predictable. And I would rather have that world, because that is the world.
I think we get there eventually. Like, this is where we end up.
We will get that eventually when all the fiat kind of gets dissolved, when all the real estate demonetizes, all the stock market, all bond market, all fiat currencies, when all of that goes to Bitcoin and Bitcoin grows, whatever, how many 100 times from here, then the volatility,
then it goes to like 5% a year, maybe eventually, and then that's a good place, right? Because
that's a good place. But I think that's not gonna be the case. I think that I'm with Knut Svalholm, with infinity divided by 21 million. I think that after the complete, I think that after complete, I think we are gonna have this slope, right? It's like S curve. And we are going to slow down the appreciation. But then after everything is monetized onto Bitcoin, because of the increases in specialization, technology, everything, I think that we are going to start producing so much stuff, so much abundance, that Bitcoin's purchasing power will go again skyrocket mode. And it's just going to, like, especially because when people, so that's far in the future, when people understand, when every Bitcoin is mined, when they understand that they can, if they don't have a plan for their Bitcoin, for their for the generations that are coming, if they maybe don't have children or whatever, they're just going to say, okay, I'm going to, before I die, I'm going to burn 99% of the coins that I have in order to basically give from myself to leave a legacy for the civilization in the future. So that's what, so because of that, Bitcoin is still going to continue to appreciate in purchasing power forever. As Michael said, forever,
Laura.
Forever, because it's completely limited in amount. That's the
that's a good place to end. 2 hours flies by really fast.
Exactly.
And Pavao, I appreciate your time. Everyone listening, thanks for being here. If you want to support this work, support the show, and support the Orange Pilling Mission and Rab, there's a Bitcoin address in the YouTube link, or you can do value for value through Fountain. I don't know if we have that fully set up yet, but that will be set up eventually. And Pavao, I look forward to our conversation next month, and then the one in October, doing it in person. I think that'll be really powerful. And that's it for now. We'll see you next month. Thanks for being here. Ciao for now.